the Netherlands. March 24th, 2014. 58 world leaders gather at the World Forum in The Hague for the third biannual Nuclear Security Summit. In the center of the room is a giant spinning hologram of a pyramid, with 3 smaller upside-down pyramids inside it. This symbol, which is also worn as a pin by the delegates, is the summit's official logo. But there are some who claim it represents something else: the all-seeing eye of the Illuminati. Conspiracy theorists suggest that this centuries-old secret society is alive and well in the 21st century, as evidenced by symbols flashed by celebrities, industry moguls, and even heads of state.
The modern-day Illuminati was organized by Adam Weishaupt in Germany. And he formulated plans so that his group could infiltrate all the key powers of society: the political sphere, the banking sphere, the media sphere back in the late 1700s. When we're talking about the Illuminati today, we're talking about essentially the most powerful secret society. These are the people that pull the strings from behind the scenes.
Is this just paranoia, or might the Illuminati still be around today, embedded in the highest levels of society? And if so, what is their agenda? Some say the answer can be found with a much older secret society, which may have been the precursor to the Illuminati, the Knights Templar. This band of warrior monks was formed in 1118 AD to protect pilgrims traveling to Jerusalem during the Crusades. But many claim that their true purpose was to find lost religious relics hidden at the Temple Mount. And during their time in Jerusalem, they rose from relative obscurity to being the most powerful order of the Crusades. So far-reaching was their influence that it became widely rumored they were in league with demons.
Jacques de Molay, the leading figure in the history of the Knights Templar, was brought up on charges of treason and heresy for something like devil worship. Somehow worshiping the dark side. This was the charge brought against not only de Molay, but the Knights Templars in general.
Is it possible the Knights Templar really were in contact with otherworldly entities they encountered at the Temple Mount? And if so, just what were these so-called demons?
We are taught that these shedim, demons, in many ways they're like human beings, and in many ways they're like the angels. Some are evil, many are good. Rumor has it that the Templar Knights endeavored to communicate with these spiritual entities.
This concept of demons is very different than the way we think of demons today. Essentially, what a demon was an otherworldly being. A being that was not of this earth, potentially an extraterrestrial being, with the word extraterrestrial meaning not of this earth.
Could the Templars really have been influenced by aliens that they misinterpreted as spiritual beings? Some ancient astronaut theorists say that the Knights Templar were in contact with the same extraterrestrials that were known in biblical times as the Watchers. And as evidence, they point to one of the Templars' most prominent symbols, the same symbol that some say was virtually present at the Nuclear Security Summit, the all-seeing eye. This symbol, which is sometimes just an eye, but often an eye within a pyramid, was used by the ancient Egyptians, the Knights Templar, the Rosicrucians, the Freemasons, the Illuminati, and is even incorporated into the Great Seal of the United States. It is a symbol that is most commonly interpreted to mean that someone or something is watching us.
The Eye of Providence symbolizes the idea of an omniscient, intelligent universe that is overseeing all of the affairs that we have here on Earth.
For many, the Eye of Providence was a symbol that God was watching over us, but others believed that it had a much deeper meaning and actually extended well beyond many other cultures, possibly even connected to extraterrestrials.
South America. The Andes mountain range in Ecuador. For thousands of years, this rainforest, high on the eastern slopes, has been the land of the Shuar. Headhunters who are fiercely protective of their homeland and its secrets. And of all the Shuar's secrets, perhaps none has been so carefully guarded as the location and entrance of the Cave of Tayos. But why? Perhaps the answer can be found in the story of an Italian Catholic missionary named Father Crespi, who lived in the region in the middle of the last century.
Father Carlo Crespi, he was loved by the Indians. He helped them without asking for money, and the Indians made them some presents.
But what was unique about the presents or gifts given to Father Crespi was that they often took the form of elaborately carved artifacts, some made of gold or other precious metals. Often these objects featured elaborate carvings and symbols, not known to be associated with the Shuar culture. In his 1973 book, Gold of the Gods, ancient astronaut theorist Erich von Daniken wrote of Father Crespi's incredible collection, which he believed to come from the Cave of Tayos, and which were, in his opinion, treasures from an unknown and highly advanced culture. The startling questions posed in von Daniken's book soon inspired Scottish explorer Stanley Hall to try and solve the mystery himself. In 1975, Hall traveled to Cuenca to see Father Crespi's collection with his own eyes.
I have for years been researching South America as the missing page of prehistory. I first heard of the Tayos Caves was in Erich von Daniken's book and followed it through from there.
And one of the presents which the old priest received is a tablet with 36 writings. It's a metallic tablet. No one until today was able to translate these writings.
In 1976, Stanley Hall mounted an expedition of more than 100 people to explore Tayos. Among them was American astronaut Neil Armstrong, the first man to walk on the moon. Entering the cave through a jungle entrance known to the Ecuadorian army, the explorers were fascinated by what they encountered, especially large areas that appeared to have been excavated by someone or something.
The head of the British Geological Group, Dr. Brian Kelly, in 1976, he admitted that it was difficult for him to explain the actual large doorways that you see in these caves.
Although Stan Hall's expedition did find a tomb chamber with items dating to 1500 BC.
A ring, a stone ring.
The expedition found no treasure and no trace of anything that looked like the artifacts in Father Crespi's collection. But if Tayos was not the secret origin of Father Crespi's amazing collection, where did it come from? Undaunted, Hall didn't give up his search. 15 years later, in 1991, the explorer tracked down an Ecuadorian named Petronio Jaramillo, who claimed to have entered the cave of Tyos through a secret entrance back in 1946.
And apparently, Petronio had visited this cave for the very first time when he was very young, when he was in his teens. He said that he had to dive underwater, go in this underwater tunnel, and then come up.
Jaramillo told Hall he wandered through chamber after chamber of ancient relics, including a vast room of books made from gold and other metals. Books with unrecognizable writing. Possibly like that on one of the metal tablets in Father Crespi's collection.
So other things looked like formulas, and so on and so on. So it was one spectacular statement after another.
Some argue whether or not an ancient civilization had come down to Earth and had used this cave system to leave certain artifacts of their civilization behind for us to recover.
Unfortunately, before he could guide Stanley Hall to the underwater cave entrance, Petronio Jaramillo died, taking the secret to his grave. Stanley Hall himself died in 2008, before he was able to renew his search for the so-called Metal Library. Fortunately, Stanley Hall's daughter, Eileen, has decided to continue her father's work.
Unless we find this treasure, unless we can see, translate the writing, it's still a big question mark over who wrote it, why they put it there, and who put it there.
Giza Plateau, Egypt. The Great Pyramid is arguably the most enigmatic structure on the face of the Earth. It is the only surviving wonder of the ancient world, and has inspired endless speculation as to how it was built and what purpose it served.
Ever since the first studies of the Great Pyramid in Egypt have been made, researchers have been amazed at the mathematical knowledge that is encoded into the Great Pyramid, the measurements that are used in it. Even the placement of the Great Pyramid has aroused great interest among Egyptologists.
The Great Pyramid is aligned to within 3/60ths of a degree of north, a more accurate alignment than any other structure on Earth.
When you look at the Great Pyramid's alignment, it's aligned very, very close to true north. Even more interesting is to think about tracking back in time, because the Earth's axis has been shifting slowly. It's what we call precesses. And so if there's been a shift in that alignment, it could be that it was even more accurately aligned to north in the past when they built it.
The Great Pyramid is not only perfectly aligned to the cardinal points, its placement on the Earth is seemingly intentional as well.
If you pass a great circle from the Great Pyramid through its cardinal and its ordinal directions, what you find is that these circles will pass through more landmass of the Earth than any other location on the Earth. You find that the Great Pyramid is essentially located at the centre of the world's landmass.
Since the first accurate survey of the Great Pyramid in 1925, mathematicians and researchers have discovered even more profound connections relating to geodetic information, or information pertaining to the measurement and representation of the Earth, encoded in its design.
The Great Pyramid was built with a level of technological sophistication far in excess of anything that we have today. They don't use the inch as we normally have it in the English system. It's the cubit. And what's interesting about this cubit is that it is exactly 1/25 millionth of the polar diameter of the Earth, meaning the distance from the North Pole to the South Pole of the Earth. Chop it up into 25 million pieces, there's your cubit. It's perfect.
So if you actually take the length of the Great Pyramid at its mean socket level, which is the corners of the actual building, It translates into 365.24 pyramid cubits, which just happens to be the Earth a year right down to a quarter day.
The measurements of the length and width of the perimeter of the Great Pyramid correspond to an exact fraction of both the latitude and longitude measurements at the equator. Scaled up, this means the Great Pyramid directly corresponds to the circumference of the equator, as well as the measurement from the equator to the pole, making it a scale model of the Northern Hemisphere. Recently, using satellite technology, researchers have realized yet another advanced formula encoded in the design.
If you take the location of the Great Pyramid as a coordinate, this number sequence of this coordinate matches exactly the speed of light traveling through space, measured in meters per second. This is amazing stuff. When you consider the vast amount of information about the Earth that's encoded into the Great Pyramid, you can't just dismiss all of this as pure coincidence.
Although the Great Pyramid at Giza offers an astounding example of encoded information, other sites around the world, such as the Mesoamerican pyramids and the ziggurats of Mesopotamia, have also been found to be aligned to exact cardinal points and embody mathematical concepts.
These buildings were built under divine guidance. This is a mark of the gods. They put certain things in these buildings to let us know they are not entirely of human origin. They represent something larger than we are.
The builders wanted to make sure that a future generation would know that there's a discrepancy in knowledge. And what I'm suggesting is that all these ancient structures are calling cards left by extraterrestrials.
Shanxi Province, China. In 1974, farmers digging a well outside the town of Xi'an made an astonishing discovery. A life-size clay soldier intricately carved and dressed for battle. Further excavation revealed thousands of these sculptures, known as the Terracotta warriors, each with remarkably realistic facial expressions. Entombed in the earth for over 2,000 years, the warriors are part of a massive underground mausoleum built for China's first emperor of the Qin dynasty, Qin Shi Huang.
The tomb at Qin Shi Huang is quite extraordinary. Over 8,000 terracotta soldiers have been found there, along with 520 horses, 130 chariots, most of which are still buried.
Qin Shi Huang is literally the first emperor in China. He established the Qin dynasty in the year 221 BC. And he established many things that actually continue to function throughout the imperial period in China.
Qin conquered and united China, built the Great Wall, and standardized the monetary and legal system. But Qin Shi Huang was also obsessed with finding the secret of immortality.
This is an emperor who goes in search of the islands of immortality. This is an emperor who's obsessed with rediscovering lost knowledge. His ambition is to become, in life, like the gods.
To this end, Qin spent over 3 decades forcing more than 700,000 laborers to construct the 4-layered subterranean city that would serve as his resting place. At the heart of the ancient complex is one of China's greatest mysteries.
The tomb actually covers a very large area. Only a few areas and surrounding the border part of the tomb complex have been excavated.
Archaeologists believe that underneath this central burial mound is the chamber containing Emperor Qin's remains. To date, the site is still unexcavated due to dangerously high levels of mercury.
What's thought to be inside is an exact model of the universe in miniature, with the ceiling made to look like the sky with all the stars represented by pearls. And then the rivers in China would be the ground, and it is the mercury that is supposed to look like the rivers.
A conductive element used in gauges, electronics, and automobiles. Mercury is a liquid metal that was discovered by archaeologists in an Egyptian tomb that dates back to 1500 BC. Some researchers believe the presence of mercury indicates the existence of modern technology in the ancient world.
The presence of mercury also in these tombs is unusual. Mercury is something which is not really very useful to us, except in very high-tech devices. And it could have been used as part of the extraterrestrials and their technology on this planet.